You ready to get started? I don't want to start it by saying there's a lot, but there's a lot. So I first want to start by talking about what we're talking about. So it is Martin Luther King Day, weekend. Significant that it's right now. Let's just breathe into that for a moment. He is our ancestor. So can we connect in a way that's like, this is my mother, father, granddad, uncle, and just bless this life that is his life, that has gone on giving so much to each one of us, to our world, to the evolution of consciousness. And we bless his entire family and the lineage that has come forth from him. Amen. So we are on the second Sunday of a series in prosperity. It is based on the book by Eric Butterworth called Spiritual Economics. If you don't have that book, you can order it online. You can also go to YouTube and listen to a lot of it for free. But we are doing something a little different than we have done in most years because, well, there's a lot going on that's different. And so we are expanding. And so your staff here has put together an incredible, full, rounded experience of prosperity. So we are going to not only be talking about these topics and these chapters in our Sunday service, but we have a Wednesday night class that's both virtual, online, and in person. So you can hop in there where you really get to experience the book, you get to experience the practice, you get to dive in, get messy, get dirty, roll around your thoughts, roll around your challenges, roll around what's going on in your consciousness. And we have other opportunities to get together. I will be in 2 deep dives that are in person so we can unpack this, because if you didn't sign up for a group because maybe you couldn't make all the sessions or the time didn't work for you, you have the opportunity every Sunday to go deep dive after the service online or here in person over at the Fillmore Cafe with Mary Kay and Courtney. So I will be at 2 of those, this one today and another one, and then I'll be in 2 online. So I invite you to join me for those 4 deep dives. We're also gonna have a mid-session Wednesday luncheon, and so we'll have information about that. But there's a Wednesday halfway through that you can grab a coffee or grab something to snack on, and that's hybrid, so people in person and virtual can do that. And then anytime on a Tuesday that you want to set up a Coffee Connect to dive into these principles a little deeper, or apply some of your real challenges and just kind of chew it up a little bit spiritually, go ahead and make an appointment for that. So we have a full experience of it, and we'll be doing this this Sunday morning. The thing about a prosperity group or a prosperity class that a lot of people don't know is like what it is and what it isn't. It's not about getting. It's not about money. It's not about all these things that people often think it is. It's not based on some of the traditional Christian views of the prosperity gospel. What it is a practice, and it's an annual practice that honors the truth that we are an inlet and an outlet. We are an inlet and an outlet of all that is God. So it is just like the environment. It's just like looking at, the world around you and going, okay, how is the world within me created and demonstrated like this as well? So it has to do with forgiveness work. It has to do with abundance work. It has to do with visioning, having a dream and standing on that dream. It has to do with letting go and getting rid of things. It has to do with blessing and honoring the gifts. It has to do with looking at our own minds and our own consciousness and our own part. It has to do with our oneness and what we're here to be. So when we do a prosperity group or a prosperity class, a lot of people do it every year because it's a good seasonal refresher on how to live more abundantly, how to wake up those little parts of ourselves that maybe kind of relax a little bit. And if you've been doing prosperity classes, raise your hand if you've done prosperity groups and classes. Yeah, shake them. Raise your hand if you've done a few. Yeah, So for many of us, it's an annual practice. And when it's an annual practice, you start to notice that something happens. Before it even comes, before it even starts, it starts happening to you. It starts coming to you. You start going through your things and creating order. You start releasing and blessing things and giving them to other people. You start working your forgiveness practice. All of these practices start coming to you. Good things start to happen that you really start to notice, like, wow, right now my definition of abundance and prosperity would be this. And it just landed in my lap. And I couldn't have orchestrated that if I'd put it on a list to Santa. So that stuff starts to happen. And that encourages us to become practitioners in the law of circulation and to engage in practices like this. So this year, we are bringing this to you. And this has never happened before. That thing was listening and writing down what I was saying. I don't know how that integrates, but actually, you know what? It does. The universe is always listening, isn't it? It is always listening and integrating the things that you're trying to say to it and that we're not trying to say to it, right? Because it's listening to the fabric of our being. And in fact, the second chapter is about consciousness, and it's about what is inside and working it from the inside out. Because we like to think that only our positive thoughts, that only the ones we want to demonstrate, that we want to manifest, that we have practiced and we think are great, are the ones that are circulating in our lives. But that's not true of the universe. The universe is one that, as Deepak Chopra says, eavesdrops. Like eavesdrops on everything. And if we have our own spiritual practice, we can also then eavesdrop on what we call the mind of God and lean into it. Because the universe is always listening, not just to the things we want it to hear, but to the fullness of our minds and our consciousness. So let's go ahead and get started. Last Sunday was about substance and about spiritual substance. And give it up for Reverend Brenda Arrett, our staff minister. She is usually on live stream with our virtual sanctuary. You know, at this point in time, we have more people in our virtual sanctuaries than we do actually in-house. Well, that's not exactly true, because in Unity, everyone doesn't come every Sunday, you know, so if everyone came every Sunday, that would be interesting to see. We'd have to figure that out. Is that a plug? Plug. Thanks for being here in person. It makes a difference to see you. So chapter 2 in this book is about what happens within us. And I'm just going to give us some spiritual nourishment to chew on by sharing some of Eric Butterworth's direct words. This chapter 2, is your fortune begins with you. Your fortune begins with you. So here are a few things that Eric Butterworth covers in chapter 2. It's important. It's an important moment in your life when you discover for yourself the great truth that things happen around you and things happen to you, but the only things which really count are the things that happen in you. He goes on to say, you are where you are in experience, in relationship, even financial conditions, because of what you are. Because what you are. So he's talking to the idea that where we are in consciousness matters. That what is in our mind matters. Now, a lot of times in New Thought, we can use that for metaphysical malpractice. Okay, so this is where I am, so now I demonstrated all this. This is where you are. Oh, so you demonstrated all of that. The individual consciousness matters, right? Because perspective matters, right? I just got a new pair of glasses. Does it matter that I put them on? Yeah, it matters. I have another pair sitting over there that are those progressives. You know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm still a little scared of them, so they're not on my face, and I'll be doing this for a little bit because I haven't gotten used to it. The consciousness matters. How I feel about something matters. How I see it changes. So we have spiritual lenses that we can put on, but there's also the collective. There's also the collective. And Martin Luther King talked a lot about the collective, and he gave us a lot of keys on how the collective and how our consciousness of the collective actually outpictures in a world that works for all or a world that doesn't work for all. So we're balancing the truth that there is unity consciousness, that we are one, and that my individual consciousness matters, and also our collective consciousness matters. That the universe is listening to and birthing from all of it, yeah? He says that this practice that we call prosperity practices and this teaching that he brings to us in this book, he said, now this is not an easy teaching. You may want to reject it and put the book aside. In the Bible, when Jesus began to lay out the hard laws of his teaching, it says many of his disciples drew back and no longer went about with him. He goes on to say this is how it's always been. However, if you're willing to accept full responsibility for your life, then, even as your level of thought has put you where you are, or at least contributed, so by a change of consciousness, you can change the experiences in your life. So we're going collective and we're going individual. He goes on to say, you do not cause economic conditions, though we all share in the cumulative consciousness that is the cause. Now, you can replace economic with anything. It is the cumulative consciousness that is the cause. But if you give them reality by your negative thoughts or conversations about them, you become synchronized with an energy flow which has as swift an influence on your life as the light that bathes the room when you throw the switch. You do not make the light, but in a very real sense, it becomes real in your experience by reason of your act of turning it on. He goes on to say, consider, if you will, the responsibility you have toward conditions as a whole. For what happens in your mind is reflected in your affairs and will have a definite, even if minuscule, influence upon the nation's business. There is no way out. You are always on the side of the problem, or you are on the side of the solution. Choose this day whom you will serve, from Josh 24:15. Relevant? He goes on to say, by your thinking, you're either adding to your good or you are taking away from it. He goes on to talk about the principles of prosperity and the misconceptions. And when he talks about the principles and practices, this is an important part. He says, the important truth is that you are a spiritual being with the allness of infinite mind within you. Whatever your needs may be, the answer is not to get God to give you more. We can put the word us in there. The answer is not to get God to give us more through some divine sleight of hand process, but rather to uncover and release your own imprisoned splendor. Avoid the temptation to try to work out the law and thus to materialize the process. Get your mind off the idea of making a demonstration in life. Center your awareness on a deeper sense of life, and the demonstration will begin to make you. Let's listen to that part again. Get your mind off the idea of making a demonstration in life. Human condition. We want to make the demonstration in life. He says, just change your focus. It's not about it's not about the dream. It's not about the vision and that there's anything wrong with the vision. It's that where our perspective is, our focus, shift that focus. And he tells us, center your awareness on a deeper sense of life, and the demonstration will begin to make you. He goes on to say, if you center your consciousness in the expectation of miracles, you are playing with universal law, hoping for some magic abrogation of its inexorable activity. You're putting the whole weight of your consciousness on the side of the belief in the universe of caprice. It is spiritually is spiritual naivete, which dilutes all the way that you may have built up in the awareness of the changelessness of divine law. So he's going into the idea that this is not a game, that we don't have to play games. This is the very fabric of our being. We are an inlet and an outlet, that we don't have to make believe that we have to coax or bring in a magic show, as he says, from a God that's out there. Like there's a God that's out there that's not doing enough to come save us, to come fix it. In Unity, we teach God works in me, through me, as me. The God of life is also expressing in and through and as our activity, our consciousness, and our actions. So if we want more Godness, we open the floodgates to what Butterworth calls the imprisoned splendor. He says there are no miracles in an orderly universe. All things are possible under divine law. So he's not saying that there are no miracles. He's saying miracles aren't some abrogation of the law. They're not some thing that it's like, oh, well, you bought the lottery ticket somehow, the spiritual lottery ticket, and now a miracle is demonstrated. Miracles are normal parts of life. And we fall asleep to that truth. He says, fortune is not something to find, but to unfold. Fortune is not something to find, but to unfold. And later he quotes Walt Whitman, henceforth I ask not good fortune. I myself am good fortune. I myself am good fortune. He says that we slip into an entropic consciousness through synchronizing our thoughts with the negative thinking of the world, and misfortune follows. So can we instead sync our thoughts with something else? Get this idea. He says, it is interesting that there is mounting evidence, and this is a long time ago, for the existence of an opposite scientific principle than entropy, syntropy, through the influence of which forms tend to reach higher and higher levels of organization, order, and dynamic harmony. Do you believe that there is an evolution of consciousness? I mean, evolution, just evolution, right? And if we believe in evolution, if we do, then it would make sense to think that even when things look like there is disorder and chaos and devolving, that the natural balance, right, the arc of justice, the natural balance is moving towards more order, is moving towards more unity consciousness. Yes, I was thinking about this and thinking about some of these practices because, we have a lot of conversations about what's going on these days. And, it's important to remind each other. I mean, I have a Buddhist friend that I ask. He runs the Unity, the Buddhist temple downtown at the Unity Temple in the Plaza. And I go to him when all my Unity stuff is like crunching me and I'm going, but Victor. And then he brings me the East meets West, right? And he's like, this is what humanity has done since the beginning of time. This is it. This has been happening forever. It's in our awareness now. It's in your awareness in ways that maybe it wasn't before. Can that bring me hope? Well, it means I need to look at what is in front of me. I need to look at what I really am. When I was younger, growing up, do you remember those... they were like infomercials on TV with children starving, and they were like so emaciated, right? And it was about feeding them, and so what? Like, we talked about, maybe we gave, maybe we financially contributed, maybe, your parents said, well, eat your food. Well, can I just send it to those kids? And they're like, well, you can't get it that far that fast. It'll rot. Da, 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 da. But I grew up in a system where we were shown that, and then we went to school. And then we went home, and then we ate dinner. Sometimes we went shopping, shut the door, opened the door in the morning. We kept living and we kept going. The problem was still there. So what did we teach the children? we taught them that is a reality. Now go ahead, set it aside, fall asleep again, and let's go back at it, right? But just like that little cell phone we can hear going off, it was still going. It's still going. It's still going. And it's okay. You're helping the talk, so don't worry about it. But, I mean, someone can help them get it off in a second. But that happens to us all the time, right? So right now, the only difference is we're all seeing it and going, it's so uncomfortable. And what is happening? So many of us go, no, I want to go back to sleep. I want to go back to shopping. I live in a world that doesn't work for all. But I am here as a spiritual being, an emanation of my source to co-create a world that works for all. I'm responsible for some of it because I'm here. I'm here on the planet. So it has to do with my individual consciousness. It has to do with the collective consciousness. It's both and. So am I doing my work and am I doing what's in front of me to do? Anything that is in front of me to do. But it is a glorious thing to be waking up. It is a glorious thing to be waking up. It is awful for the human condition. It is awful for the human condition. And we must lean into each other and we must have compassion. And we must grow our consciousness of love and unity and putting that into practical, real ways of being. But it is spiritual truth and it is spiritual practice. And we were born here for it. We're here for it. We're here for it, not to get these ideas of little principles in books so that they can stay in books. They weren't written down by people that have long since been in their freedom form so that they can just stay in books. They're written down so we can go, okay, now is the time to throw this into action. What does that mean that I can't stay asleep? Do we want to keep arguing for staying asleep? I mean, who cares? Everyone in this room is going to be in their freedom form at some point. Every single one. Our crazy Carl wrote the song 100 Years. And in that song, he said, everyone here will be gone. So let's not complain that we're living awake. I mean, we can complain. We're going to. It's going to be a lot of complaining. But let's just go, yes, and bring it on. I am awake. I am the little girl who saw that infomercial and said, and then just went, okay, let's go to bed and read a story and let's get up. Martin Luther King shared that he had a dream, and he had a dream in the midst of awful and ugly, and what didn't look like that dream could come into demonstration in any way, shape, form in his lifetime after it. But he lived his life full out. He got on the playing field, and he dedicated the fullness of his spiritual and his human being to it. He gave his life to it, as did the master teacher. As did spiritual saints and sages throughout time. And what do we say and what do we sing? I am standing on the shoulders of those who have come before me from my little comfortable place back here. Well, the master teacher said, this too and more shall you do. This too and more shall we do. Do not leave it under a bushel basket. It's not just for the saints and the sages throughout time that we consider not to be ourselves. It's for all of us, and it is unfolding and it is evolving right here and right now. Can we stay focused on truth principles? Can we get grounded? We will be not grounded as well, but can we get re-grounded in the practice? Syntropy. Eric Butterworth says, we rise into a syntropic consciousness as we keep our minds stayed on God. Keeping our minds stayed on God is G-O-D, the grand overall design. It is not something so far away and outside of us. It is what we are born through, what we are born for, what we are born in. It is all that is. Everything else is an illusion. Everything else is substance coming into manifestation and leaving manifestation. It is all matter. Matter comes. I was showing my daughter, I had a headache the other day, and I had one of those little vibrating, and I was like, oh, cool, I got to show her this. You know, it's solid on one side, and then on my hand, it's solid, right? And I've got them put together, and I'm like, look, Georgia, Do you see a space in between? Because it's vibrating, and it's vibrating so fast, right? You can just see straight between it. So you've got solid touching solid, but vibrating so fast, it looks like there's just space there. There is so much more than meets the eye. And we are invited into the discomfort of wrestling with that and waking up and staying awake. And it's happening on a collective level. We have it all the time through our grief work, through our own individual lives. Everyone has lost someone, suffered something, had some sort of mishap and thing in life where all of a sudden everything you thought you knew and everything in life was, as it was, is like, crushed. And you're like, what is this? What is this? What is this? But usually it's individual stuff, right? It's on an individual level. We're waking up on a collective level. We're all going through the same thing. We're doing the grief work together. If you look through the stages of grief, it's amazing how it can model like where I am in any moment in different places in the official stages of grief. But can I believe in my spiritual practice, these spiritual principles that have been passed on throughout time, not for anyone else, but for me, for us, right here, right now, and for this moment? Can we keep our minds stayed on God? Syntropy is a beautiful and it is a spiritually resonant concept. It's God as love in motion. Teilhard de Chardin taught it that it's like things evolve into greater, more complex, more intelligent systems. Entropy is the disorder, the breakdown. But syntropy is the connection, the regeneration, the emergence, the harmony. It's life's tendency to organize towards greater coherence, greater vitality, and greater wholeness. So if it looked like it wasn't going in that direction, it will start destroying anything that's not moving in that direction. Love is the organizing matter. Nora Bateson, her father is Gregory Bateson, and she's done a documentary, some books, and she talks about this idea. It's kind of like science meets spiritual, but that life tends towards wholeness. And she also helps us kind of bring together the idea of the individual and the collective and how it's all, we know it's all one. We know it's all one. The very breath that goes in you, the very molecules that are in us, it's like we're all an expression of the one. But she goes into some ways that help that kind of land. She has a core idea of the unit of survival is organism plus environment. So you've got an organism and you've also got the environment. That's oneness. It's like I can't exist. I could act like I could exist without my environment. That life is a pattern of relationships. So when we look at life, we look at it not just in a vacuum of one individual thing, but in a relational pattern. And that's abundance and that's prosperity. And that's how we can look at what's working and what's not working. That's how we can do the work on an individual level and a collective level. Life doesn't move towards collapse. It moves towards coherence. That can feel like collapse when we're waking up to it. Abundance is not about accumulation and getting things. It's about alignment. Martin Luther King taught alignment. So if we think of this like this decomposing and this entropy hoards, it isolates, it's about fear and loss, but syntropy circulates, it connects us, it trusts life. Martin Luther King, I want to just invite us to breathe in to a few of these power statements from Martin Luther King. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. God never intended for one group of people to live in superfluous, inordinate wealth while others live in abject, deadening poverty. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. The curse of poverty has no justification in our age. It is socially as cruel and blind as the practice of cannibalism. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs reconstructing. Restructuring. Reconstructing. Someone knows their quotes exactly in here. Good job. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. The law of visualization, and this is what Martin Luther King embodied. Using the power of visualization to move that so deeply in and through the body temple, the mind, body, spirit expression, that it becomes one with substance and it starts to materialize in the outer, that it is so magnetic, so dynamic, not because it's so hoped for and it's not real, but because it's so real and it's so the truth of our being that when you speak to it and you speak life to it, it emerges because it is truth. Eric Butterworth said on the law of visualization, one of the most important aspects of the study of truth is training the eyes to see properly. We have been conditioned, he says, to believe that life is lived from the outside in. I'm doing the snippets here. Even more, what the mind sees is not a solid picture that is communicated to the brain, but what your awareness has conditioned you to see. In other words, seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. You see things not as they are, but as you are. Right seeing is one of the most important keys to the effective demonstration of truth.
For we walk by faith, not by sight.
This is not to blind yourself to the facts, but rather to contemplate the facts from the highest point of view, Emerson said. True seeing is a flow of consciousness, flowing like a fountain from within. Thus, where you are in consciousness has everything to do with what you see in experience. And I want to close with this line that we've heard in a lot of prosperity groups and abundance teachings. James Allen, dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, you shall become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your idea is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil. James Allen. This is the time we are here. Namaste.